It is rather obvious that Virat Kohli is one of the greatest batters in cricket history. And yet Rajasthan Royals started with 2 leg side catches for him in a T20. And still, second ball, Kohli pushes the ball to within an inch of being out caught.
This is the last knock. My dad told me to say this.
Something has gone very wrong when a player of this talent almost falls into a plan so obvious that it couldn't have been any clearer if Wile E. Coyote had ordered it from Acme. Kohli is in the middle of the kind of form slump we have seen on occasions in T20 cricket before. They end with many single-figure scores. And Kohli's current run is 9, 0, 0, 12 and 1. It's slightly better than binary, but it's very binary-like. And I wanted to compare it to a couple of other terrible run forms. Player A, 0, 1, 0, 0 and 14 just a couple of years back. And player B, 0, 8, 23, 0, 0, 9, 19 and 0 last IPL. Those two duds include KL Rahul, who up until recently was second on the orange cap board. Can you have an orange cap board? I don't know. And Nicholas Pooran, who after 7 games is averaging 56 with a bunch of not outs. And it's not just T20 either. And it's not even a recent thing, of course. Go back to the great Greg Chappell, who once went 0, 0, 0, 0, 6, 12 and 0 across multiple formats. Even the greats have sometimes wondered where their next run is coming from. And in Kohli's case, he decided against Rajasthan that those runs would come if he came at the top of the innings, so he opened the batting. He actually scored 2 boundaries in that first over, but in all honesty, neither of them were particularly good. The first was a mangled drag to leg where the bat flies around in his hands like someone put oil on the grip. For a batter as poetic and certain as Kohli, this looked accidental. The next one is just a mistake. His angled bat tries to push on the offside and nearly drags it back onto his stumps. But instead, he gets 4 bonus runs as it goes down to fine leg for 4. But to finish out that over, as Trent Boult is bringing the ball back into him, he gets 2 more inside edges that again could have ended up back on his stumps. Virat Kohli is just one of the most certain people on the planet, and his batting currently looks like a human question mark. There was a nickname used for Virat Kohli at RCB a few years ago, and it was essentially along the lines of, he's the busiest man in the world. They said it was like dealing with a world leader. You'd only have moments of time with a great man. So no matter what you were trying to pass over, you had to be clear, concise and quick. Despite being captain one year, he never actually spoke a word to his team analyst. Every minute was accounted for. This was during the 2018 season. And that was the year he made 530 runs and an average of 48 while striking at 139. And I bring it up not because that was the cutoff time and everything after has been rubbish and everything before was great. But that's certainly the time when a lot of things changed in Virat Kohli's life. He went from being a regular, very good athlete to being a living brand. He got married, he had children, and he devoted himself as much to all those things as he had to cricket. It's not that he ever worked less hard on his game, it's just that he became a 24-hour person. And since that year, he just hasn't been a dominant force in the IPL. From the 2019 season till now, he's been averaging a respectable 31, but with a strike rate of 126. The 4 seasons prior, he was averaging 52 and striking at 139. Things have changed, and we know that because we know all the numbers about Kohli's life. From how many products he spruces on Twitter, all the way through to how many mentions his wife Anushka Sharma gets. Everything's counted, but most of his life has been filled with glorious figures. And now they're not. It's weird to think how much the lack of numbers has defined his current career. At first it was the disappearing hundreds. Since making 100 against Bangladesh in a test match in late 2019, Kohli has gone 112 innings without a century. In 709 professional innings before that, he had 86 of them. Of recent times, it has been even worse. And it would be easy to write off what was happening in the IPL if it wasn't the fact that we'd seen him struggling kind of everywhere. And in this season alone, there is no real repetitive problem that Kohli has had. He's done what most batters do in a horrific form drop. He's found interesting and quick ways to be dismissed. The match against Lucknow, Kohli was out in the first over to face Chamira. He got a back of a length ball outside off stump that moved away. He did an aggressive push, almost a flash, and it went straight to backward point. At that stage, Kohli looked up at his captain Faf du Plessis and just sort of winced a smile at him. But the smile was gone next match, when he was in for the 9th ball, and it was a straightish half follow from Janssen, and he loosely pushed at it to give a nick behind to one of the 2 slips. After this first ball dismissal, he just stared at the pitch for a while. And think about it this way, it would have actually seemed incredible to have 2 slips for him when he arrived at the crease. and now it almost feels like a necessity. Umashadav also took the outside of his edge with a ball that was a little bit shorter and a little bit different when he was playing against Kolkata. There was another early dismissal when he misjudged the length against Chennai and he flicked the ball straight to backward square. Those were all so early in his innings that it would be hard to say he was out of form, although he was out. There's also been 2 runouts. Each time he is overcommitted and been sent back by a partner. The one against Delhi was probably worse because he was 12 from 14 then and he'd eaten up some time and he tried to take on Lalit Yadav at point and lost. He also has that one decent score, he's 48, which is a huge part of his 128 runs in 9 games so far. There would be many players who would be dropped. Even David Warner was dropped, probably incorrectly, last season. The form drops that we talked about before of Pooran and KL Rahul, there was also talk about dropping them and Pooran was actually dropped. But one simply does not drop the Virat Kohli. It's a whole world of pain, especially over a handful of bad innings. If you were to say that all of his form over the last 4 seasons is enough to drop him, you'd still need a player who's going to average more than 31 at a strike rate of over 126. Believe it or not, even if those numbers aren't awe-inspiring, it's not particularly easy to find someone who can do that. And of course we search for the reasons. I talked about before just that there are still 24 hours in a day. Virat Kohli throws himself into everything. We have no idea if that's true. Ravi Shastri and Kevin Peterson have talked about how he just needs a break. And to be fair, we've seen a lot of very good players and players who don't have anywhere near the amount of stress on them that Kohli has, just taking a break because of this COVID era. There's no doubt over the last few years that his form has slipped. It's possible that the superhuman physical skills that allowed him to once dominate cricket are now on the wane. That doesn't mean that he needs to drop off completely. A lot of players when they get older use their mind. But if his mind isn't as sharp as it should be, that could be the reason. Of course, if it's that simple, and these things almost never are, then a break makes the most sense. So at the start of this video we talked about Trent Bolt's over, but Virat survived that and he went on to face Prashith Krishna. The second ball of that over he got a back of a length delivery that seemed away. He leaves but with zero authority. He just didn't quite look like Virat Kohli again. However, what followed directly after was a graceful and well-timed push to mid-off. If even for a moment you had to think to yourself, if this is bad form, it's not that bad. But it's followed by 2 short balls. One is a long way outside off stump. But Kohli commits to the pull shot until he basically can't reach the delivery. The umpires call it a wide. Had he got any bat on it, it probably would have been a top edge or a toe, and it could have flown up and been caught quite easily. Prashith follows up with a shorter, straighter and just better ball. Kohli tries to hook this unsuccessfully, despite the 2 fortunate boundaries, and he's gone for 9 from 10 balls. Now, it's worth saying that Faf du Plessis struggled in this innings, and so did Glenn Maxwell, who was dismissed on a far worse shot than Kohli's. And both are in much better form than he is. But none of this matters though, because that is not part of the current narrative. The current narrative is that Kohli is struggling. And so Kohli walks off slowly and the cameras follow him all the way. They do not detect a hint of a smile. The truth is that T20 batting is about failure. It speeds up the game, making any nasty knocks feel quicker and crueler. This is not a time in the middle sport. And how can you get any form when you keep making golden ducks or getting run out? Form comes back as quick as it left into you, but it never feels that way when you are struggling. And it would be disingenuous to say that Kohli is only struggling in the IPL right now. He hasn't been the same player over the last couple of years, pretty much in every format. And as Virat Kohli is halfway through his hook shot from Prashith Krishna, he is actually looking at fine leg, probably wondering where his next run is coming from. Little does he know that the ball is actually looping to Riyan Parag, who's behind his back at point. A better metaphor for his current form, you will not find.